Yeah, well, let's just be nice and casual, and I'll just show you some of the stuff that I found first that kind of is percolating around this fairy stuff. So one of the things I was interested in was trying to find out whether there is any kind of written folklore about these lights in the woods. Um, you'd think that there probably would be, and you'd think also that if it was fireflies and that kind of thing, it would be pretty well known and well documented because it's really consistent and you can go down and see it. So I'll
Right.
just share a couple of things that I found. They're not exactly the same as the stuff that we saw. Let's put this in full screen. These are the photos that Justin took.
It's so great that Justin was there to take these photos because they really do kind of give at least a little bit of a sense of what they look like, you know?
Exactly. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I love this one. They seem to, you really get a sense of the motion of it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so this is one of the things I found. This one is from a
Mm.
Reddit page, and this pretty much describes exactly what happened with us. I'll read it out. Okay, so it says, my mum is a psychic medium and has always told me about her fairy hunting stories. I never really believed her and thought she was mistaking lightning bugs or fireflies for fairies. Last night she began talking about fairy hunting again, and I decided to go with her so I could experience what my mum had talked to me about. In Lilydale, they have a fairy trail in the woods. So at about 10:30 p.m., we headed out into the woods with a flashlight. We get about half a mile into the woods, and my mum turned off all the lights and starts talking and welcoming the fairies to come in. At this point, I'm sketched out and feeling super uncomfortable about being in the woods with no light. I was more expecting to see a bear than I was a fairy. This is so familiar. Then, almost instantly, I feel extremely calm and start seeing these flashing lights around me. I grew up in New York and I know what a lightning bug looks like. These were not lightning bugs. It was almost like the sparks you see when you light a lighter. Whatever was making the light was flying because you would see the light move. Then my mum tells me to look behind me, and the tree directly behind me almost looked like it had little patches glowing in the dark. They then began to flash light when we would sing and ask questions. I don't really know what to make out of this experience. The feeling I had was like no other. Another weird part about this that makes me believe we weren't seeing bugs, this we should try maybe one day, were we asked multiple questions and asked to flash twice for yes, and every time we asked a question, we got a reply. There were about 2 minutes where we didn't see anything, and my mum asked them to show us their beautiful lights a few more times before we left, and they all started showing us their lights again. I thought I would share my experience and see what you guys might think about it. So
Yeah.
that's pretty strange. And it was from about, I think it was like I can't remember exactly now, like 2011 or something. So it's from quite a while ago.
Mm. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I think I agree. I wish that it would have occurred to us to attempt some sort of seance style communication.
Yeah.
Because they did seem so responsive to us, but I don't think any of us thought of asking them to flash twice for yes. Um, yeah, this
Yeah.
is a great story. It's certainly the exact same thing that we saw.
Yeah.
I
There's,
should note my son is in the room with me, and despite being 8 months old, he's passionate about ghost lights. So that if you hear a disembodied voice, that's that's him.
perfect. Yeah, so that's one thing. And I think, it at least suggests a kind of continuity of it over time. And got a very similar kind of story. It could well be that this was written by someone that we know,
Yeah.
um, who's taken in one of the people who took us down there, maybe. It's not
Hmm.
clear, but it's so similar.
It
That,
is.
Okay, so that's one thing. That's quite interesting. Okay, and this is another one. Um, this one, I just did a quick search for UFOs on Lake Casadega, which is the big lake nearby. And this is another one I found from quite a while ago. We were sitting on the hotel porch on July 30th, 2011, so Actually, that's pretty. It's just today. It's like July the 29th. As is customary for tourists and residents on warm evenings. Lilydale is a spiritualist community which runs a summer program. Yeah. There were at least 6 to 8 of us passing the hours before bedtime when an orange sphere floated over the trees from the north and drifted south. It was an orange sphere that I identified as a possible hot air balloon, as I tried to find words to describe it. Never having seen a UFO, I was open to the possibility and watched carefully, but trying to normalize the experience. It did not speed up, slow down, or change direction, and moved at a speed I thought was consistent with a hot air balloon, but could not understand how one could navigate safely at that time of night, nor why it appeared completely lit up. It was about 10 p.m.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So I met someone at the symposium on Saturday night who had a UFO sighting that week, I believe on Wednesday.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
over excuse me, Lake Casadega. So I should put this person in touch with you because I think it was her and another person who had a pretty interesting sighting that, if I remember correctly, was also a sort of orange or amber sphere over the lake.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting. And I mean, it doesn't sound like what we saw necessarily in the woods, but
No.
it's definitely well, it sounds kind of more similar to what you've described seeing in Texas,
Yeah.
but high up. But we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, here's
Sure.
another one. So this is interesting. This is from this is a little book that we found up in the red house, the house that Shannon was renting. And it turns out that that red house is in fact the farm, this farm that's mentioned, um, which is probably why the book was in there. And it's written by this guy, Charles Lafayette Todd. Lafayette. There's a nice little fairy kind of nod there. And he was a folklorist anyway. And it's a very interesting book. This is one I may have mentioned it, where he really says that there is no kind of interesting folklore in this area. He goes on about how in other parts around like other states nearby, there's loads of stories about monsters and these kinds of things, but in this particular area, there's practically nothing except for Lilydale. And anyway, I'll read you this little story. So this happened actually in that red house, I'm guessing, which is where we were having the parties and things. Um, so it used to be called the Todd Farm. The Todd Farm lay across the middle lake of the Cassadaga Lakes from the Lilydale spiritualists, whose goings on were largely ignored by our family. Our skepticism, however, was put to a test on a winter in 1924. Around 4 a.m. on the second night of my visit, I heard a terrifying scream from Gerald's downstairs bedroom. I rushed down, turned on the light, and found him sitting bolt upright in bed, shaking, pale, and covered in perspiration. He was unable to speak for several minutes, but finally gasped out, "Pa was just here." There was a bright glow at the foot of the bed, and in the middle of it I saw Pa's face. He spoke to me and said, "Take care of Ma, son." Then he and the light went away. Pa's dead. So I tried to convince him it was just a dream. And then the story goes on, and the guy kind of goes out, and then he ends up dying a few days later.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. Um, again, it's not exactly thing that we saw,
Right.
but it is lit lights, and it's not far from where we saw our lights. Um,
Right.
okay, so there's that one. I've nearly finished these things now.
All right.
Um, this is cool. When we went to the library, me and Chris went to the library in Lilydale and having a look through the different books, trying to find if there was anything interesting. And I stumbled upon this book. Have you encountered this artist before?
No, I have not. It's
Charles
beautiful though.
Birchfield. Yeah. Well, he's kind of like a visionary artist. I'd never heard of him before, and he came from Buffalo, so not too far away. And there is, I think there's a gallery dedicated to him in Buffalo. I didn't know any of this. Anyway, I was flicking through it, and the idea of the sacred woods, obviously, it just caught my attention. And then I turned to this page, with this painting that's called Fireflies and Lightning. And there's a better version of it on here. Um,
Wow.
yeah. there's something about it that kind of I don't know, speaks to the experience that we had in the woods.
Certainly.
Um, Obviously he's saying it, it's fireflies. But that's cool. And then the last thing I will mention is this little story that was sent to me after my folklore book was published. And there's a chapter in there, or a small section in the book that talks about kind of will-o'-the-wisps. And in Wales, they're called Ellill Dan, which means elf fire or fire elf or something like that. And this is from someone who was around about a little bit younger than me, but lived literally just up the road from where I am now. So this is what he said. I was struck by your chapter on Ellill Dan and Cwn Annwn. Cwn Annwn are the hounds of the underworld in Celtic folklore. In your book, I had a memory flood back to me. Up the Brew Lane, you'll find the home of the local gamekeeper and their family. One evening, I was playing football with their son in their back garden. It's important to note that this back garden is a steep slope that connects directly to Coed Gelli Velen. As we played, I kicked the ball into the bush at the top of this slope. When I went to retrieve it, I noticed a small light on the opposite side of the fence, a floating kind of star, a single orb of light small enough to be mistaken for the catch of light in a creature's eye. Unlike a creature, however, it didn't move, not an inch, no flinching as I moved towards it. It simply hung slightly above the line of grass. I remember being scared and asking James what it could be. He was equally confused. We plucked up our courage and moved closer to the light. We will have pulled ourselves up the steep edges of the garden and even climbed some rocks to get closer. As we reached the top, it had moved much further away. It hadn't made a sound or disturbed the grass, but there it was floating and watching, just now deeper into the bush and towards the trees. This was when fear took hold. I believed it was some form of alien, so we took flight and went inside.
It's interesting about the fear. That's sort of a new thing in the accounts that we've looked at.
Yeah, we weren't afraid of these little lights that we saw.
No.
Um,
Um,
but these were probably kids at the time, so
right. Yeah. Yeah, one thing that I noted at least compared to other sort of ghost light experiences I've had is that the vibes in the I guess we can call them the fairy woods. And of course this is subjective. This is not a scientific claim, but the vibes were generally good. At no
mm,
point did I feel uncomfortable or frightened in any way. And occasionally, you know, I have had those feelings when looking for ghost lights, right? It's easy to sort of realize like, oh, okay, I'm in the middle of the woods at night and I'm pursuing something that I don't know what it is, right? It's easy to get uncomfortable, but yeah, I found the vibes in the fairy woods pretty good overall.
yeah, definitely. It wasn't a scary experience for me, although
Yeah.
we have heard people telling stories of people who've been freaked out by it.
Yes. Yeah.
So, So yeah, so you mentioned that you've had your own kind of ghost light experiences in addition to this. So maybe it'd be interesting to hear if there are any commonalities, differences, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about it. So the only ghost light that I would say I have kind of extensive experience with is in a place called Bragg Road in Saratoga, Texas. It's in a bioregion called the Big Thicket in Southeast Texas. And this is a fairly famous ghost light. It's probably not as famous as the Marfa lights, or which are probably the most famous ghost lights in the United States, at least. And Bragg Road is an 8 mile dirt road. It's a former railroad bed, so it's very easy to see a long way down it. And yeah, there's a ghost light that is sort of widely recognized in the local community. Uh, unlike, sorry, like I said, my son is passionate about ghost lights. As one of the big differences between the lights in Lilydale and at Bragg Road is the light on Bragg Road is anywhere from about the size of a baseball to a basketball.
Mm,
It can be really large compared to what we saw. And So sorry, Jack. I'm just going to pick him up really quickly if you don't mind. I'm
That's
sorry
okay.
about
It's fine.
that.
It's fine.
All right. You want to talk about ghost lights?
Why not?
Luckily he's never been on Bragg Road. But yeah, and so a few of the really interesting things about Bragg Road, at least in my opinion, the thing that makes the light really, really, I think, strange and interesting is like the lights that we saw, it seems to kind of behave with something like intelligence. So oftentimes it will approach people, seemingly out of a kind of curiosity, only to really sort of retreat when it's approached in turn, when you try to get closer to it. One sort of example, the first night I was ever out on Bragg Road was in June of 2018, and I was traveling with a friend in a car, and we noticed that the light was sort of coming closer to us, kind of checking us out, but we were unable to get very close to it. And then my friend who was driving made this sort of impulsive decision to really drive quite quickly down the road to see if we could get right up next to whatever this light was. And as soon as he did that, as soon as he sort of put the car in drive and hit the gas, the light immediately retreated and then disappeared. And seemingly sort of in reaction to what we were doing. And this is something I've heard from lots of people who have seen the light on Bragg Road that it approaches, it retreats, it seems to be curious and also kind of cautious about human beings, which is really interesting. Um, this is not from Bragg Road, but I've been able to find a number of sort of historical accounts about mysterious lights from the same area, one of which I think the most sort of interesting and kind of startling is actually an account by a gentleman named Edgar Bendy, who was a formerly enslaved person who spent his life in the Big Thicket, and he gave his life story to the Federal Writers Project, which was a federal program in the 1930s to sort of record American history, and this was part of a slave narratives project to record the lives of formerly enslaved people. And Edgar Bendy said that he had been the best hunter in Tyler County until one night, the way he put it, one night the Jackamai lanterns got on me. And what he went on to say was, Jackamai lanterns are like a fire that gets all over you. That's they come like the wind and they sort of burn like fire when they're on you. And so unfortunately, Bendy's account is sort of vague. It's kind of difficult to understand exactly what he's talking about. But jack-o'-lantern or jack-o'-my-lantern is actually a kind of American vernacular rendition of will-o'-the-wisp. And it seems to me like Bendy is describing an experience where he was actually burned by something like a ghost light, something like the light on Bragg Road. And he said that he never went hunting again at night after that, despite being, as he put it, the best hunter in Tyler County. So in at least in this place in Texas, there's actually pretty rich sort of historical traditions of ghost lights, in ways that kind of recall the sort of lights that people claim to see today. Speaking of the sort of like burning effect, the light on Bragg Road has many people claim that it has scorched their cars. So people who are able to get close to it and actually like hit it with their car will say that it damages the car when they get close to it. So whatever ghost lights may be, at least the one on Bragg Road, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't get too close, but
No,
yeah,
it's very interesting because I heard, pe like Josh talking about catching lightning bugs and things like that as a kid. So presumably, it's relatively easy to catch one, to get up close to one and capture it.
it is. Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, with these ones in the woods at Lilydale, I don't think, well, I don't know if anyone's actually tried to catch one in a jar, but it seems as though, the closer, like you're saying with the ghost light, the closer you get to it, the further away it is. So that's pretty
I,
weird.
yeah, I noticed the same thing when we would sort of approach, when we would try to get close in Lilydale, they seemed to kind of give us a few more feet. They sort of stepped away. The other thing I noticed, you know, even in the dark, I was able to see, when a moth would fly in front of my face or a mosquito was sort of buzzing around my face. But I was never able to see any insects attached to the lights that we saw. And I feel pretty confident in saying that if they were lightning bugs, at least of the kind that I'm familiar with, we would have been able to see those insects. Lightning bugs are not, they're not the fastest or most graceful flyer. They kind of they move sort of slowly and kind of
Bumble.
yeah, they're not like I said, very fast. So yeah, it not like any lightning bug that I've ever seen, certainly.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's an ongoing mystery.
yeah.
But I think that's good, and it's probably the way that it should be kept.
Yeah, I think so too. I hope we get to go back next year and try again, and maybe we can try some of those seance techniques.
Yeah, that is one thing also that I've been thinking quite a bit about is the possible seanciness of the whole thing as well. I mean, we were
Yes.
doing a semi-seance when we were down there by singing
Sure.
songs and that kind of thing, but I've been down there before with someone else who is more of a kind of a medium, and I'm not. I know I need to do it again, but I think possibly it might have been more intense with a medium.
Yeah. Well, I
So
mean, I noted the ways that like Elizabeth was such a technician of bringing these things out, right? She seemed so skilled at it and to really know how to guide us and whether it was time for a joke or a song or a treat, she really knew how to kind of get their attention and hold it, which is very much a kind
energy
of
up.
seance style. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So that is another kind of aspect of it. And I also know Justin messaged me and he said after the after party on the last night they went down there again. I don't know if you went down there again as well.
No, I missed that one.
Yeah, but he said it was very quiet,
Oh,
very much
okay.
that there was not much activity down there.
Interesting.
And for him, he thought that that was a an indication that there's something else going on, that it wasn't just insects, which you might expect to be down there
Right.
consistently.
Right.
Um,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, thank you for that. I think we got some good, interesting insights there and some nice sort of things to compare and contrast with. So,
definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Jack. Yeah, this was fun. And the historical and kind of like little ethnographic details you've been able to pull out in this short time are really fascinating. I think, with a full day in the Lilydale Library, who knows what you might notice, you know?
I know it's so exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'll stop recording then.
Alrighty.